My privilege to call the meeting to order. This is the December 19th, I guess is today. No, 19th
Yep,
uh,
19th.
meeting of the Trumbull Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force, and I welcome everybody. I guess we'll start as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask you to please join me. I pledge allegiance to the
Allegiance to
flag
the
of
Flag
the
flag
United
of the
States of
United States of
America
United States
America,
of
and
America,
to the
to the
republic
the
for
republic
which
republic
it
which
stands,
for which it
stands
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
indivisible,
liberty and
liberty and
justice for
justice
all.
for all.
justice for all.
Uh, I will follow my usual practice of trying to expedite roll call. I know that the clerk can see us all, but in addition to myself, we're joined by David Rosenberg, Rick Bolton, Shala Fleming, and Rodney Gray. Also by the Town Council Liaison, Jennifer Winchell, by our attorney, Jim Cordone, obviously by our clerk, Joanne Glasser-Ornstein, and tonight I think it's Paul Brown. Have I got that right? Well, Joanne will make it sure that that we recorded it correctly either way. Um, and so with that, we can begin. Um, First item on our agenda is correspondence. There has been no correspondence to the edit email box since our last meeting, but I will share with you all that I received an email directed up. Joanne, we're joined by Chris Powell, so thank you. I received an email from Kaleem Jan, former member of Edit, who sends his regards and wanted to let us know that he is appreciative of the efforts of the Trumbull Recreation Department for extending the indoor badminton program in Middlebrook Gym, and reports that the diverse community members are involved and appreciate the program being offered to a mostly Asian community. So I thought I would share that with you.
I'm sorry, what was
Uh,
the?
Kaleem Jan,
Oh,
Jan.
oh yeah.
Um, with that, I'll move on to public comment. Paul, would you please see if there are any members of the public who are in attendance who would like to speak? I don't know if Paul's paying attention to me.
John, Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing anyone at this
Okay.
time.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Uh, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of November 21st. I think that everybody present tonight was present at that meeting except David. And so um, uh, I'll call for a motion which can be made by anybody to approve the minutes.
I move to approve last meeting's minutes.
Thank you, Rick. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I would note that the minutes reflect the attendance by Marcus Patton, who was really watching from the sidelines as opposed to participating in the meeting. I don't know that there needs to be a correction, but um, with that exception, the minutes seem to me to be fine. Unless there are any other comments or if anyone has a different view of whether there's a need to correct the minutes in that respect, um, I'll call for a vote. Okay. Hearing none, I'll call for that vote. Everybody's eligible except I assume David will abstain. All in favor? Carries unanimously with one abstention. Thank you. And we'll move on to old business. First item of old business is the diversity training update. I think what I would report is that uh, um, the small group of us who were authorized at the last meeting to pursue the diversity training have settled on a preferred candidate, and we are trying to set up a meeting with the candidate and maybe some of his colleagues, some members of our committee, and hopefully Tom McCarthy in the Trumbull Human Resources Department, and any others that Mr. McCarthy might wish to have join us. I did happen to catch the ear of Mr. McCarthy at a recent town meeting and let him know that we would be in touch, and he expressed receptiveness to that. So I look forward to trying to advance that ball in the new year. Before I move on to the next agenda item, any comments on that discussion? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the value statement update. I am very pleased to report that since our last meeting, the value statement came before, I get it wrong, but I think it's the Legislation and Administration Committee, or Legislation and Administrative Committee. And there was a little bit of discussion in that meeting, but it was unanimously recommended out to the town council. It came before the town council last night and was approved with bipartisan support, virtually unanimously. There was one no, and the expressed reason for the no vote was the perception that it was unnecessary because Trumbull is already living up to those values. And while I certainly appreciate that perspective, and we all hope that Trumbull will live up to those values, from my perspective, I think it is helpful for the town to state out loud and widely that these are our values, and we are. I'm speaking now for myself. I am very grateful that the town and the town council adopted the value statement, and we'll look forward to working with the town to get the word out, and hope that from time to time people even cite the value statement as part of their thought process. So thank you all for all of your efforts to get us here, and for championing it and making sure that we persevered. If there's any, well, I'll jump ahead just for a second to item F, 7F under old business, and report that Shal and I were interviewed this afternoon by Shanice Brown of the Trumbull Times, who is doing a piece on this development. And I don't know whether it'll be in the Connecticut Post or not, but I expect it will be in the Trumbull Times. And so hopefully that will be an article we'll look forward to reading. And with that, I'll ask if anyone has any further comment or discussion on this.
That's amazing, Rodney. That's great, amazing. It's funny that both of you got that interview. I was just going to suggest tonight to reach out to her if she wasn't aware, to see if that would be an interest to her to do a piece on it. And now you're sharing that the interview is already taking place. So good, it's good stuff.
Yeah, she I guess I don't know. I assume she looks at our agendas and minutes, but I know she looks at the town council agendas and minutes, and so it was the fact that it was on the town council agenda that caused her to reach out to us. Any other comments? Okay. Moving on to the next item of old business. Since our last meeting, I have confirmed that the library has set March 24th, 2025 at 6 p.m. for the book club discussion of The Good Immigrant. And we can, I hope we'll all read it. I hope we'll all turn out for that meeting. And in the new year, we should start to publicize that event. I think that to try to publicize it now is probably to add noise into the wind, but after the first of the year, I think we can start to promote that. As well, moving on, I apologize. I should pause and not just talk at you. Any comments or observations about that? Okay. So next on our agenda, we've also confirmed since our last meeting that the library is moving forward on February 2nd, 2025 at 2 p.m. with a screening of The Price of a Ticket with a what I think I understand to be a director talkback. I don't know if I correctly learned that term from Jess Spillane, but I might have absorbed it as my kids went through Trumbull High School. In any event, the director, who lives in Easton, will be in attendance and will be happy, I think, to talk to those who come to the screening. And that will be co-sponsored between the library and Edit. And similarly, I think we can publicize that after the first of the year. On the same, or I guess a sub-point under the same agenda item, is the possibility of the Nero Hawley program with the Trumbull Historical Society. Jennifer, you were kind enough last month to volunteer to investigate pursuing that, and I think even to speak to be the program. But would you let us know where that stands?
It is going to come up to the Historical Society board meeting in the coming weeks, and so I should be able to have a definite date then. But I'd be happy to do it, so it'll be good.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I think, well, I'm sure our new business, or at least some of our new business, can be done quickly. So rather than taking anything out of order, let's just proceed. Any further discussion on the Black History Month events that we were just describing? Okay. So we had, I think, the beginning of an interesting discussion last month about the EdSite reports that had been circulated previously and had promised to return to it this month. In preparation for this meeting, I took another look at the most recent report, and without having tried really hard to crunch the numbers, it stands out in a extremely blatant way that the faculty is not representative of the student population. And I think that everybody understands, from the Ed department and outside the Ed department, that that has consequences and implications that are of some concern. There is value to students to learn from a diverse faculty and to see people in those roles who look like them and who can be role models and mentors. I think I'm stating the obvious. And so it's obviously an issue that deserves attention. And as we discussed last month, the district is aware of it and is giving it attention. But there is the question whether there is something more to be done and what role Edit might have to play in that. And so I wanted to provide a further opportunity for discussion of that this evening. If the discussion cannot be completed in the time we have available, we can continue to discuss it at future meetings. I will, just as a point of personal privilege, note that I have a work obligation at 8:30, and I want to make sure that we allow time for the new business, at least to some extent. We need to pass a motion to schedule our meetings so that we can alert the town and put them on the calendar. But subject to those constraints, I'm happy to open up for discussion. And I'd like us to have a discussion as a committee. I certainly don't want to be the sole voice, and I'm not even sure I want to be the leader. But I will try to at least moderate, in the sense that no one's talking over each other and everyone has a chance to speak. So I'll open it up for that discussion. Chala.
Thank you. And thank you for the ongoing opportunity to talk about this. I guess I'll say two things. One, I think part of the conversation, if I remember correctly, that we had last time, was sort of more of a, I don't know if philosophical is the right word, but like a question about like the function of this committee and what we do or do not have purview over, where we do and do not have capacity to lean in, where there is and is not desire for us to lean in. And so for me, it's hard for us to continue this conversation in this space um, without clarity on what we are and are not able to do and where we are and are not able to lean. I have made clear that I think this is an incredibly important issue, and I think that our committee is one that could potentially be of benefit in collaboration with the Board of Education as they seek to further diversify the teachers and faculty in the district. And I also think that this committee could be of benefit to lots of other departments as they try to do any number of things related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but only if we are invited to or given the space to function in that way. And so my personal push would be that we offer that as a potential space of collaboration to the Department of Education or to Dr. Semmel or whoever we think is the best party to do that. If they choose not to, then at least we've made the offer. But for me, there is a bigger question in this space, but also others, about whether it would be appropriate for the superintendent or anyone else, any other department head, to decline the offer of this committee to be able to provide support, even if it's just as a thought partner, on any particular task related to diversity, equity, inclusion.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. So last month, I guess I don't want to overstate it, but I think that Shala and I had a little bit of a debate, a little discussion, and I'm prepared to, at least in part, continue to play that role. I think that it's fair to say that Shala and I both, and I don't mean to speak for her, but would value the input of the entire committee on this and appreciate your perspectives and insights. I'll elaborate on that just briefly. From my perspective, as I think about what Shala was saying, there are at least a couple of different dimensions to the issue. There's the question of how our participation would be received, and there's the separate, maybe threshold question of our capability and bandwidth to provide that role if there were people who were willing to receive it. And I have some concern about my own limitations and inability to provide meaningful input into the thought processes of departments that have professionals who are focused on this issue. Having said that, I have much more faith in Shala's. She's got the right degree and the right experience, and there are others on this call, in this meeting, who also may be better suited than I. And so there's this question of what role do we want to play? I think that has to precede the question of whether anybody else wants us to play it. With respect to that latter question, I think that Dr. Semmel, since we're focused on education, is willing to hear from us at almost any time. I don't want to overstate it. It's not that he has said that we should show up without knocking, but he has indicated a willingness to meet with us. He did meet with us relatively recently. He is willing to hear us out. he has indicated, I think, that from his perspective, they've got good people attuned to this and working on it. And so it's not that he's not willing to hear good ideas, but he does not feel, as I understand it, a need for our support. And so if we think that there is something we would like to convey to him, we have only to ask him for a meeting in order to convey it. And so, again, I don't want to drone on. I don't want to steal all the air in the room, and I don't want this to be just a dialogue between Shala and me. I want to encourage people to share your perspectives on the role that they would like our committee to play in this discussion.
I have thoughts on the issue, but I want to pause for a minute to see if anybody else has anything to say on it before I do.
Well, it looked like David was about ready to speak, but I'm sure he would be happy to hear from you first if you want.
Yeah, I think that just trying to how do we get to a place where we can collaborate and work with this board and with Semmel, because it's just like it's an energy that I'm feeling as if they don't want to be bothered with us. It's not just necessarily just they don't need our input. I think it's the degree is even higher that they just don't even want to be bothered. But what can we do to change that narrative or that tone to say, hey, look, how can we truly work together and collaborate and talk about what's realistic? And I also think that this is going to take a long time. I mean, that value statement was something in itself, but it's kind of like we just warming up as far as a committee to get things accomplished. But what does that look like to everyone to see what's just truly realistic? Putting the emotions to the side, the frustrations to the side, and get to a point where we can just have a real discussion about that issue. Me personally, I think Semmel should attend one of our meetings. I mean, just come on in and speak with us. I think members of the board should come speak with us at some point. We need to get an understanding of what's realistic and what they're thinking, and I think that's where we could start.
David, you were gonna.
I was just going to add, having been in that meeting with him back in October, I think, John, you stated it correctly, that he's open to listening. I don't know that he's looking for assistance. And so it seems to me that unless we bring a proposal to him that he can buy into, I don't know that there's a there. That was my takeaway from that meeting as well.
So yeah, thank you. So Rodney, let me
Mine
come
as
back to
well.
the point. Oh,
Sorry, just jumping in there. I got the distinct impression that he didn't really want there to be, something that some gap that we're going to fill. I didn't get the perception that he felt that there was one, or that our committee had some expertise or perspective or skill set that was lacking within his jurisdiction. So I really didn't get the impression that, he really wanted to find some way to collaborate such that he would gain something that he currently lacks.
So let me frame the discussion a little bit, playing off of things that Rodney and Shala have both said. And frankly, the sense I have from the meeting that a few of us attended with Dr. Semmel, if we as a group, whatever that means, decide to roll up our sleeves, do some work, and seek a meeting with Dr. Semmel to share with him our learnings or insights, whatever that means, whether it's here's a place where you should go to have a hiring fair, or here's something you should read, or here are questions you should ask, or here are ways to conduct interviews. I think if we developed a work product of that kind, I don't know that he would follow it, but he would receive it. I think he would pay attention to it. I think he would consider it. And so that could be a constructive path for us. And that seems to me, at least perhaps, to be part of what Shala is suggesting. Conversely, if what we said to Dr. Semmel is, we think you should come to our meeting and you should answer our questions about what you're doing. I won't speak for him. I don't mean to suggest that he would refuse to come. I think we should bear in mind we don't have subpoena power. We're asking him to cooperate, to decide voluntarily that that is something with which he wants to engage. And I think that there would be less enthusiasm for that.
Right.
I don't mean to say that he would say no. I don't, as I said, but
I think
my
he would,
perception
I think he would
is
prefer he was never invited to do so.
my perception is that he is happy to hear from us and but wants his prerogatives to be respected as an independent department of the town. And so I throw that out for consideration in terms of how it is that we want to proceed. Jennifer, if you want to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm wondering, are you aiming at somebody who's too high, or should you be aiming at the Director of Human Capital and Talent Development and the Human Resource Specialists? They're the ones who do the hiring.
It's a very good question, to which I think that the answer is, I don't know, but I would be very reluctant to start there. I would go back to Dr. Semmel and say, hey, we think that maybe we are aiming too high and taking too much of your time. Would it be okay, or what do you think if we talk to these other people?
Right.
Rodney and then David.
But we don't have the bandwidth to talk to who we want to talk to. I mean, is Semmel the ceiling? Is what Jennifer we're recommending? We can't just contact that resource. We have to go to Semmel in either way.
No, my point isn't that Dr. Semmel. Let me put it this way. Some of us who have been on the committee for a little longer may recall that there was a time, I don't remember specifically when it was, when we sought to interact with the school. There was, I think, a message we were trying to distribute about an art contest or some similar thing by asking the school principals to distribute it. And some of you may recall that went absolutely nowhere. And afterwards, we learned that the superintendent would have preferred the courtesy of our going through him and letting him know that we were interested in doing this. There are some policies and rules around how information gets circulated in the schools. And not surprisingly, entities outside of the schools are not free to simply decide what to circulate within the schools. And so we haven't had occasion since then to seek to distribute a similar message. But actually, there was one occasion where he helped us, I think. But it was message received that there are polite, considerate ways to do this, and those work better than saying, you know, we know the phone number and the email, so we're going to do it ourselves. And so bottom line, Rodney, is I think what I would say is we are much more likely to achieve our objectives by according the education department the independence and respect that it deserves as a separate department of government. David?
Yeah, I agree. I think getting his buy-in is a better chance of success than subverting that kind of chain of command. I just want to note that Chala and Rodney feel strongly about this, and I want to be supportive of that. Again, my takeaway from the meeting with him is that if we came to him with a proposal of how we think we can interact, how we think we can be helpful, and with a little more proactiveness to see, a plan, this is how we would like this, this is how we'd like to see this proceed, we might be more successful. I mean, as a reminder to those who weren't there, it was very conversational. We offered our assistance, but we weren't asking for anything specific. And so to support what Chala and Rodney are saying, I think that maybe there's an opportunity to go back with more of an agenda and say, this is someplace we think not only do we think we can be successful, but we'd like to be helpful as a more firm offer instead of kind of a passing interest.
Yeah,
Sean?
I understand that, but the issue with that is that if I recall, if I have this correct, Dr. Semmel has a committee in place that handles these things. So if we were to develop some sort of proposal and ideas and things of that nature, he could possibly say, we already have that in place. So if we had some committee members or someone from his office or to learn more about what they have in place that they actually are currently doing, so we're not coming up with, so we're not being redundant. We have to learn how it functions, what they're doing. And the only way that's going to happen is somebody from his admin or board or some of that nature is to come and explain to us and be detailed on what's in place.
Well, no. One other way to do that is to ask him for the courtesy of having a meeting with a smaller number of us in order to have a discussion. Shala?
Thank you. I appreciate, David, what you just said. It helped me sort of like crystallize a potential next step as far as I understand. I can't say I necessarily agree, but I understand the dynamic that exists. And I understand what you all are saying about, your takeaways from the most recent meeting. And so something that occurs to me is that maybe it is helpful if, for example, in our last meeting, when we were looking at the existing plan, I highlighted some places where there were some like additional thoughts or pushes that like it might be helpful as they think about achieving those outcomes. And so maybe that is a step, is whatever group of us are inclined to sort of look over the existing plan and provide ideas, recommendations, or suggestions to maybe further assist in that. And so the other thing I will say, sort of which a little bit touches what Rodney just talked about, is that the district has broader equity goals. They have, I believe it's called a district equity leadership team. I am nearly certain that they also have school-based equity leadership teams. And so that also, for me, feels like a space for collaboration. Because if I understand how they function correctly, they are like doing some similar work that we are doing, right, within the district, within the school district, that we are doing at a town level as it comes to further advancing and enhancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I guess like the last thing I will say is that I sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And so I've encountered people who believe they have something and it's like good. And I know what I'm doing. And I think we have some data that suggests that there is still room to grow and improve. And that's not to suggest that they aren't doing things to try to help that along. But I don't lean into, um, I've got like I just think that there are sometimes we have blind spots. And so while it sounds like um there has been a communication that like we've got this, and perhaps like what does this committee have in terms of expertise that would be helpful? I don't think we know that until we try.
So I have a thought, but before I share it, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Chris, but I do want to invite you if you want to participate in the discussion. If there's anything that you'd like to share from your perspective, I think we'd all be glad to hear it. And if you don't, that's okay.
I don't really have anything else to add. I'm just wondering, like, how are we actually going to be able to put this into action? How are we going to be able to actually, I guess, to put it in milder terms, have some actual power?
Okay, so that question is the thing that I had a thought about an answer to, and sort of sparked by again comments that Shala and Rodney made. I don't think that the right way to do this, I don't think that the way that we will be most successful is to say to Dr. Semmel, hey, by the way, our next meeting is in January and we'd love to see you and bring your pals. I think instead what would be more productive or might be more productive is to reach out to Dr. Semmel and to say, we've had interesting and robust discussion within the edit committee about the work that's being done within the education department, and we'd like to be able to have more of a dialogue. And we think that to have that be a constructive dialogue, we'd like to have 2 or 3 members of edit meet with 2 or 3 members of the committee within the district that's focused on these issues, and have a constructive conversation in that meeting around what they are doing, and we can talk more about it. That doesn't foreclose any other steps. It doesn't prevent us from deciding to lean in or not lean in later, but it's a first step to, I think, achieve the objective that Rodney has described of understanding better what's going on. And I think it would provide at the same time opportunity of the kind that Shala described to have a back and forth in which we can share some of our perspectives on the activities of the education department. Does that make sense to folks as a next step? I see Shala nodding, Rick nodding,
I'm okay with that.
Rodney's good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
David's microphone is down. What are you saying?
I'm looking at I've got the district increasing diversity, education diversity paperwork here in front of me, and it's the district equity leadership team and the school equity leadership team. So potentially asking representatives of those groups to join us in a meeting with him. Maybe that will be met with some level of agreement. That may make sense. And instead of making it higher end, hey, let's schedule to do this, let's just do it. Let's just schedule a meeting and have a discussion with the people who are doing the work.
Okay. So it seems as though we have consensus around reaching out to Dr. Semmel and inviting a dialogue that he would be welcome to participate in, but that might take place, as Jennifer suggests, at sort of a lower level of the hierarchy. Without intending to impose upon you, Shala, I think that it would be lovely if you were willing and able to attend that meeting. If we can schedule one, would you like to do that? Okay. I think that we should keep it sort of small from Edit's side. for a variety of reasons, 2 or 3 of us. Are there 1 or 2 others who would like to join Shala? And I guess with some trepidation, I'll say it this way. Let me know whether you think I either should or should not participate in that meeting, and I will do as you suggest.
I think you should be comfortable participating.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'll be comfortable. I'm trying to figure out whether, if it's a small group, I'm the right person.
I am more than happy to stand down on this on that next meeting. If that's if others are interested in going, I think actually there could be a benefit in kind of spreading the wealth a little bit, so he meets more members of the committee.
I'll attend, Jonathan.
Okay. So I think I hear Rodney and Shala both volunteering.
I would be willing to participate if it becomes the 4th person and therefore the group's getting too large. I would be happy to be left off the guest list.
Okay. Shala?
I also don't want to like pull, there's a saying, but I can't think of what it is right now. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Chris, you may have been a student in Trumbull Public Schools. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So to me, there's value if you're interested, Chris, and willing to participate, to be a part of that as someone who was a student in the public school system.
Yeah,
Mhm.
actually, I would be a little bit interested in participating in this, but the only problem that I'm thinking of right now is because I'm not going to be in Trumbull as quite often as you know, because I am away at school. But if we could somehow find a way to work ourselves around that, then I would definitely be interested.
Okay. Let's do this. I will reach out to Dr. Semmel and try to see if we can schedule a meeting, and we can identify our representatives when we have a meeting scheduled and know who's available. Does that work for folks?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion on this issue tonight? Okay. I thank you for the discussion, and I'll move on to our next agenda item. We've already essentially discussed coverage in the Trumbull Times. The only other comment I'll make on that is that at the conclusion of the interview that Chala and I did today with Ms. Brown, I alerted her to the fact that we had some upcoming events, and she expressed interest in our identifying those to her, and they can appear in the community section of the Trumbull Times. And if she's interested, she might write a piece on them. So we'll do that. Unless anybody has any other comments on that, I'll move on to new business. New business it is. We had discussed at our last meeting moving our meetings to the second Thursday of each month by Zoom at 7:30. I probably could have put this under old business because we had that discussion, but it seems to me that what we're doing now is for the first time now calling for a motion to approve the schedule as set forth on the agenda, and if approved, then to communicate it to the town to get it on the calendar. Is there anybody who would make that motion?
I would like to move that we change our calendar to meet the 2nd Tuesday of the month.
Thursday, right?
Sorry, 2nd Thursday of the month, right?
And by Zoom at 7:30 on the date set forth in the agenda. Is that the motion?
Exactly what I said.
Is there a second?
I will second the second Thursday.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any discussion?
When
Okay.
when will we start that in January next month?
Yes,
Is that what we
first
said?
meeting would
Okay.
be January 9th.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
All in favor? Okay, that carries unanimously. If I correctly saw the shadow of Rodney's hand on his sweatshirt. Um,
I do have
last
a
item
quick.
on the agenda.
Can I say one quick thing? I won't be that long. Uh, I'm okay with that. Just, I agree with the new date adjustment, but I want to try to want us to make an effort to do an in-person meeting at some point. If it's a Saturday or something for an hour or something like that, 45 minutes, or a Sunday or some sort, um, just to have a roundtable discussion on this. It just has a different um, level of, I don't know, professionalism. I don't know what word I'm looking for. I know we're about to do this, the D&I training meetings coming up, and it sounds like we're already leaning even in that regard on Zoom. And I'm just starting to think that we got to start just embracing you giving more thought to meeting in person.
I appreciate the suggestion and the comment. It's something that we have discussed periodically, and I think we can certainly consider making one of these meetings an in-person meeting. Um, Obviously, there are obstacles to getting everyone together, but the town council manages to do it every month, and so I imagine we could. Um, Thank you. Any other comments on this before I move to the last agenda item? Okay. Um, Again, at some level, this is revisiting an earlier discussion, but um, the earlier discussion was around a special meeting, a special public meeting, and we decided not to pursue that in favor of potentially pursuing a townwide survey. And so, although the words townwide survey were invoked under that other agenda item, I think it's fair to describe this as new business. And so, I don't know that time permits this evening. I apologize for my constraints, but we can at least for a few minutes uh, um, talk about whether there's a way to advance this agenda. It seems to me, just from my perspective, I don't mean to speak for you all, that uh, we might best advance this particular item by finding one or two people who are willing to devote some time and attention to trying to design a survey that we can then discuss. My perception is that trying to design a survey in a committee meeting by committee is probably asking for what we would deserve. So are there one or two of us who are willing to take on, assuming you agree with that strategy, the task of giving some thought to the design of such a survey? Shal, are you volunteering or are you asking to speak?
I am volunteering.
Okay, wonderful.
I could
Anybody
help
who,
I could help with
and
that.
Rick? Okay. There's probably room for one more if anyone's interested. Otherwise, I think that's a great subcommittee, and I thank you both. It may be too soon with the holidays to expect that you would report back on January 9th, but let me know if you want it on our agenda for January 9th. Otherwise, we can have an update if you want, and plan to talk about it, on February 13th or something like that.
Is
But I
this
think
something,
it does
is
make,
this something that is this something that Charlie and I can collaborate on, outside of meetings?
yes, that's the intention.
Okay.
Okay. Um, Anything further on that? Any other discussion this evening? Okay. Um, well, I thank you all for what I think was a good meeting, but I hope you all think so. I thank you all for your interest and participation throughout the year. It's hard to believe, but the year is just about up. And so I want to wish everybody happy holidays, all applicable holidays, including especially a Happy New Year. And I look forward to seeing you all in the new year.
Roger that.
Sounds good.
All right.
Same.
And with that, I'll ask if there's any other motion anybody wants to make tonight.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you,
Second.
Shala. All in favor? We are adjourned, 8:22. Take
night.
care.
Very good.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Happy holidays.
holidays.
Happy holidays.
Take care.
Happy holidays.